Thank you all for coming here on the last day of Tableau conference. It's so good to have you all here today. Today we're going to be talking about how you got to grow fast, and we're going to share some quick tips for building self-service on your team using Tableau sites, which you can have on Tableau Server or Tableau Online. We're not going to be covering any performance tuning tips. This is mainly a beginner level track on how you can use Tableau Server sites as a site admin. We'll be showing you what features you can use to grow self-service on your team. So my name is Graham Britz. I'm a product manager in the data management organization of the product development team here at Tableau. This is my third Tableau conference here, and I've been having a great time this year. I really love coming here and getting a chance to talk with all of you and learn about how you're using the product and learn about ways that I can make the product better in future releases so we can continue to improve it over time. While I really love what I do here at Tableau, my profession is not my only passion. Traveling is a huge love of mine. Last year, I got the chance to travel to South America and visit some of the biggest sites on my travel bucket list. Here's me at Machu Picchu. Has anyone in the room been here before? Nobody's been here before? Well, I highly encourage all of you to get a chance to go out there. It's really beautiful and quite a breathtaking place. But I do have some advice, though. Be really careful about what you eat before your trip to Machu Picchu, because the stairs up to the top are really steep and really long, and the altitude is high. And if you're sick, it's a little bit of a rough experience. But luckily, there's a clinic at the top right before you enter into the site, and they have some really good medication up there that you can take that will let you still walk around and enjoy the experience. You might be in a little bit of a daze, but it kind of adds to the surreal experience of this ancient wonder on the top of a mountain. I also really love hiking. It's one of the reasons why I've chosen to stay living in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area. Our winters might be really gray, but it keeps the trees green all year round, so that's also nice. And when the weather's too sour to go hiking and the picture doesn't show up, I like to spend my time social dancing. There was a picture of me doing tango on this a moment ago. Lately, I've been doing salsa and West Coast swing. If anyone wants to talk about travel, hiking, dancing, or data, of course, after this presentation, I'm all ears. So what brings me to conference for this third time? Well, I've been here at Tableau for about 2 years now, and when I first joined, I focused on building bridges between Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server and Online so that we would have a more connected experience across our products. We wanted to make it easier for Tableau Desktop users to share their content with the rest of their organizations. For the last year or so, I've been focusing on building features which leverage machine learning to help Tableau scale with you as your organization's usage of Tableau grows as well. My team works on the recommendations features that you saw in the keynote on Tuesday. Today, I'll be bringing my experience with Tableau product development to you to help show you some tips about how you can grow your usage of Tableau in your organization by managing your data effectively and delegating your capabilities in a good way. Now, let me introduce my co-speaker to you all, Dustin McIntyre. If you think my 3 years at Tableau Conference has been a lot, Dustin's going to put me to shame because he's been to 6. He's been tirelessly working to make Tableau Online a delightful way to share analytical content for those entire 6 years, except for when his adorable daughter needs some attention, because family always comes first for Dustin.
All right, thanks, Graham. So it's true, it's my 6th Tableau conference. In fact, my first conference was here, way back in 2011. Who was actually at that one? Oh, we got one. I'm impressed. Okay, so maybe a little closer. Who was here 2 years ago? A little more folks around here. There we go. Did you guys get to do the zip line? Yeah, I didn't either. Unfortunately, I had to watch that one from afar. That's the only one I missed, but my wife and I were traveling in Europe at that time, so that's all right. I had a pretty good time there too. But it is actually my first long trip away from the family. As I said, I've got a daughter at home, so here she is. Hopefully our homecoming tonight will be a little bit more happy than that. Okay, here's when she's more photogenic. showing our Washington Huskies pride. So, full disclosure about Vegas. It has been a while since I've been back. Like I said, I missed the last one. I always said, couldn't really get me out here unless you paid me, or maybe some epic bachelor weekend like you see on a movie. Let's just say I've checked both those boxes. So that's at Sunrise Hospital down the road. It was 1 in the morning, so let's just say it's been a while since I've come back after that one. But if you want to know how that happened, a couple tips and tricks, see me afterwards. All right, let's move on. So my professional background, I've been at Tableau for over 6 years, starting back in 2011. I was with the customer operations team, so I was helping the customers with their product keys, troubleshooting access to their communities and their customer portals, and even helping design some of our internal business systems. So when we started bringing Tableau Online out to the world back in 2013, I was the first one actually to build our customers' sites at the time. With that experience, I was training the customer operations team to help deliver Tableau's first subscription product. After that, moving on to product development, bringing my experience there. Now I'm building the tools that simplify online administration, both for you as well as for our own internal delivery systems. So when I hear about a process that takes hours, I look for ways to cut it down to minutes or just automate it entirely. And we'll see some of those tricks here today. In fact, so what we're going to talk about in planning for this year's conference, I volunteered myself in. Graham, you're welcome, by the way. I wanted to answer that question that we hear from you all the time. How can you get started quickly with Tableau's collaboration platforms? What's the core features that you need to know to get Tableau rolled out to your teams fast and start a culture of self-service? Looking at the bigger picture here, I'm hearing a sense of urgency from you. Something's happening in your organization that's driving you towards a new tool, but something's pushing you to go fast. So let's go fast. Anyone recognize this one? Yeah, that's Sonic. The loving rendition of Sonic the Hedgehog. I can't complain. Better than I could do, I'm sure. But this picture does resonate with me, so that's what we're talking about today. Right? Tableau desktops really help answer the questions faster than ever before. Right? Adoptions Tableau might be great. Pairing desktop with, say, Reader allows all your users to quickly answer and understand your data. But at a certain point, desktop and Reader is just no longer enough to keep up with the demands of the business. So Graham and I are here to show you how easy it is to scale Tableau with more users quickly using the full Tableau platform. We hope you'll come out of this session feeling empowered to try Tableau Server or Tableau Online for yourself. These tools will grow your team's use of Tableau by automating common tasks, allowing self-service data access within your organization. So the best part of this, you can get started right away. We'll go from start to finish within this session, and proof you can actually grow fast with Tableau.
So what topics are we going to cover in this presentation? We're going to start by setting up a scenario which is representative of an organization which is ready to grow fast with Tableau. Then we'll show you what things you should do to prepare for growing fast and walk through creating and organizing your very own Tableau site. After that, we'll show you how you can take that site to the next level by using some of its automation functionality and evolving the site's organization to better empower your users to do their own analysis. Please hold most of your questions for the end of this talk, where we'll have a question and answering period. Now let's begin. So let's get started by talking about how to prepare for self-service at scale and fast growth by setting up this scenario. So in this presentation, Dustin and I are going to be playing the role as two Tableau champions at a fictional organization, both big authors. Dustin is a product manager working closely with the business users and translating their requirements. I am the principal analyst and data steward, and I know the data structure and usage demands best. Now, we've had a lot of success with just Tableau Desktop so far. With just the 2 licenses we have, we've been able to answer many of our team's questions on our own a lot more quickly than we were able to before. Our success has made our work very popular. It started out with just us sharing our work with our immediate managers, but then has expanded to the entire marketing team and the leadership team in our department. And every few days, somebody new is emailing us, trying to get a hold of the work we're doing. growth had been going well for a while, but now it's starting to get harder. We've been sharing our work just using Tableau Reader, packaging up our workbooks and with extracts, and sending those workbooks over email, and people have been opening that up using Reader. But that tool is no longer enough anymore because people want live updates on the data, or they want the data to refresh on a regular basis. IT has gotten note of our popularity, and they want us to start securing access to the data. They want to know who's accessing the data and when they're accessing the data. And when we're just sharing it over email, there's no way to trace back who's using what. And since it's all email-based, if we're not checking our email, if we're away from our computers, people can't get access to the dashboards they need. So Tableau Desktop kind of enabled us to be data heroes, but now we've become data bottlenecks because everybody needs to wait on us to get access to the data they need. So the demand is growing in our organization, but the tools we're using right now aren't enough to keep up with all of the growth. So we got to grow faster. We got to grow way faster. And we need some new tools to do that. Dustin, you've been doing some research into the rest of the Tableau platform. What other tools could we use to grow faster and get rid of this bottleneck on us?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if we're such bottlenecks, like, why don't we just buy more desktop licenses? Oh, got that, yeah. Why don't we just buy more desktop, right? Sure, probably need more people to help publish, create dashboards, but it still doesn't solve all our problems. Even if everyone had desktop, still no central place to access and share the data. We want everyone looking at the same dashboards, same version of the truth, right? Desktop isn't going to give us automated updates of the data. It won't allow for the data security when we send it by email. It won't give us a way to automate reporting for our stakeholders. But we do have other options within the Tableau platform that will solve these problems. So the Tableau platform goes beyond desktop, right? By now, I'm sure you heard we offer Tableau Server and Tableau Online. Server is Tableau's original collaboration platform, would be deployed on our own machines or on a cloud platform like Microsoft Azure or in the Google Cloud. Tableau Online offers these same collaboration tools, but it's Server hosted by Tableau. Both these options give us that central place to put our data securely, right? Solve the reporting problem that we had so far. Even gives us a way to access our data through our browsers or the Tableau mobile app. Okay. So before we choose between Server and Online, we actually want to see which option is best for us. It sounds like we can either host it ourselves or just let Tableau do all the work. So there's a couple other questions that we might want to look through to help us choose the right platform. Thankfully, our account manager gave us these 5 questions to ask ourselves. So let's work through some of these quickly. Okay. So let's start with question 1, where's your data? It's important to understand that no matter which option we choose, Tableau is going to connect to hundreds of data sources from desktop, and we can publish those connections to either of these platforms. Okay. But if we need to make sure that our data stays secure and within our premises, maybe the on-premise implementation of Server works best. If we want the data to be located next to our server implementation, we could also try with cloud hosted if we have those cloud data providers. But since we don't have either of those, Tableau Online probably works for us. Right? We can still connect to on-prem and web connections. So the next question is, what resources are available and how are we going to scale those resources? So Server offers us the most control, but part of that control means that we require more resources of both the hardware and the software. Even if we did the cloud-hosted option, we still have to configure the updates when Tableau gets the latest version and control our clusters on there. And frankly, I don't have a lot of experience running that with our cloud computing platform. So with Tableau Online, it's managed for us by Tableau. So do you think you want to handle the hardware aspect of it and the management, or just stick to the data that we know best?
I think I'd rather stick to just analyzing the data.
Yeah, let Tableau take care of that. Okay, so Online's coming out ahead so far, but it's still a couple other options here. Who needs your data? Where are they coming from? So if we want to think about how users are going to access the site, Server has the most configurability of authentication options. Right? It can link with your Active Directory on your own network, or you can set up single sign-on, or just use your own local authentication to use their passwords. However, Online, right, you can use a Tableau account or still connect to single sign-on providers like Google. We actually use Google for our email, so that's going to sound like an attractive option. So let's think about that one. The other aspect is where they're coming from. So if your users are mostly internal, they're going to be on your network. Server on-premise might work out well. But if you have a lot of external customers or clients or a lot of field teams, online is available anywhere from the web, so we don't need IT's help to get us VPN to our servers. So. Lastly, how fast do we need it? Right? Well, we got to go fast, right? Obviously. So if we don't want to have to wait for our server hardware to come in, if we don't want to wait for IT to help set us up, I think Tableau Online's checking all our boxes. So why don't we move forward on that? But if you're not in Tableau Online, you have your own time with your resources or server admins, don't worry, we'll still cover all your features that you're going to want to see here. You can think of this like a cooking show where the pie is already baked and we'll just cut to the end where it's nice and hot for you. So, cool. So, to get a Tableau Online site, we'll ask our account manager, or we'll just go to tableau.com and get a trial, right? When we get that invitation sent to us by email, we'll follow the link here. This form will help us activate our site. So I'm going to configure what my information is that I'm going to use to sign in to Tableau Online, set my password, etc. Right? Then I get to name my site, so something fun like, I don't know, gotta go fast. And then I get to choose my site location. Whoops, sorry. So the site location is actually important to note because Tableau supports 2 different data centers, one in North America and one in Europe. So if you've got users or data in one of those locations, right, you can put Tableau closest to your data that way. Plus, if you have data security or data regulations where you have to keep that hosted within the European Union, I know a lot of our customers see that too, and we support that in Tableau. So we have a site. I keep saying the site, but what is a site? It's a collection of the content we're going to publish, our workbooks and data sources that we're already sharing offline today. Users will sign into the content using this central secured location with the authentication method all set up. And it runs automated tasks like keeping that data refreshed and sending our email subscriptions on our behalf. Oops. So we have a home for all our workbooks, which is great, but we're going to also want people there to collaborate. If I start publishing everything and just throwing it onto the site, it might be a little difficult to navigate. So there's going to be a couple other organization tasks that we'll work through here. Okay. So when I create the site, I'm automatically a site administrator. That helps me build that site going forward and adding all the users and the content to it. But if I want to go fast, I'm going to add Graham as a site administrator as well. So then I can delegate a lot of those tasks, so I'm not the only bottleneck. Now, Graham's also going to be leading a new team of analysts. They'll be the team really doing our reporting on desktop going forward. So in my new site, I'm going to want them to be able to publish that content into our Gotta Grow Fast site. Publishers are going to be able to view the content as well, but they can't manage the users like us as administrators. Okay. Then we also have the marketing and management groups. So we're going to want them to be able to sign in and browse the content, but we don't need them to publish anything. We don't need them to edit any content in there. So we're going to keep that down as an interactor role for now. But we also have the opportunity to update these later on, so we're not fixed. So maybe we'll sit on that one in a moment. So now I know what I want my users to do. I'm going to decide on that authentication and how they actually sign into the site. We could use the default sign-in that Tableau has, where they all create their own accounts and manage their own passwords individually. Or we can tie it into the single sign-on provider like Google, or a SAML provider like Okta or OneLogin if your company uses those. And as I said, we use Google for our email, which is great because since Google supplies an identity management system, we can just tie into that quickly. If we need to deactivate or reset their passwords, I can do it all from one console for all of our collaboration tools. Okay. So I've planned my user roles. Now I just need to put them in the site. Tableau allows me to enter every person individually and set the role for each person. Or I can add a bunch of users all at once, create a CSV file, and throw them all up there. The CSV, we have links to what those file guidelines are. Really all I'm doing is setting the email addresses for everybody. I'm defining their base license role of interactor, and then that extra capability of whether I want them to administer my site or whether I want them to be an additional publisher. Oops. So once I create that CSV, sorry, I skipped ahead. I can group these users, the group users that are going to have those similar capabilities, so that we can quickly assign them permissions on what to do with the content later on. Groups will allow us to scale that content management, and we'll see how we can actually do that really quickly without having to govern access and permissions on each individual user. Okay. So enough of me talking here, let's actually see it work, huh? Great. So here we have our site. I've gone through that form and I've activated it already. So I'm going to first get started. I have, as an administrator, these options to configure my site. I'm going to start out at the settings. So here we have ways to customize it. I can put a site logo. I can choose what other users are able to do within my site. But most importantly, I'm going to want to make sure that I set how they log in. Okay? So as I said, the default authentication is with Tableau accounts. They set their own passwords. But I also want to enable Google instead. Okay? 2 clicks, there we go. So now that I've enabled the right authentication type, go to my users link. I'm going to add additional users. As I said, Graham and myself are here. And instead of entering everybody's email address manually, I'm going to import from a file. Okay. So I want to make sure that I add them with Google since I went through the trouble to set it up. And I'll browse to that CSV that I created earlier, just went on that slide. Okay. I'm going to import. There we go. Okay. I'm thinking with this internet connection, I might have to kick it. There we go. And there we are. So I already added 10 users, do 100 users, do 1,000 users, 1 file, same clicks. All right? We see here their authentication set and their site role. So now I'm going to add those groups quickly, as I said. So we have the default for all of our users in one group, but I'm going to want to break them out a little bit further to help Graham set up his permissions. So I'll start out with those analysts. Okay. Then I'll get our marketing. And last, management. Okay. So I've grouped our users. I'll drill into each quickly. I'm going to add users to these groups. And conveniently, we're hiring people with the named by the job role, so that makes it easy to navigate. Kudos to HR on that one. Okay, in the management group, add our management users. And navigate back to marketing. Okay. So there you have it. I've got all of my users set up for the site. We have the right permissions to what they can actually do within the site. Now I'm going to hand off back to Graham to make sure that he can actually give them the content that they need.
So the next important thing with preparing your site is setting up the projects and uploading the content that everybody will need to use and setting up the right initial permissions sets so that the right people can access the right data and nobody's seeing anything they shouldn't be able to see or edit. So I'm going to show you a hack or trick that you can use so that the permissions will automatically apply to new projects more easily. By setting up the default permissions on the default project. I'm going to create some projects by use case in our organization. So we can create one for our KPIs and one for the field marketers to use, which are the 2 main use cases. And then I'm going to publish up the most commonly asked for workbook up to one of those projects so that people can start accessing it self-service. Okay, so going back to the site, you can just hop over here to the content view, and I'm going to set some permissions on this default project so that in the future, new projects will inherit from the permissions set here. So you can set permissions for entire groups of users. We want the analysts to be able to author their own content so that they can help take some of the burden off of mine and Dustin's back and help do some of the authoring. So I'm going to set them to publisher, which gives them the permission to view and save new items to this project. And then I'll give them the editor capability on existing workbooks. That allows them to do pretty much everything to workbooks. They can save new edits to them, they can go into web authoring, they'll be able to download it to make local copies, rename, other things such as that. And we're not going to set any data source specific permissions here. And then for the management and marketing groups, they're just going to be doing interacting and viewing of the workbooks. So I'll give them viewer so they can see all the stuff in the project. An interactor, and what that does, it gives them the ability to run filters and do drill downs, and they can also create their own custom copies of the workbooks, but not overwrite anything. Custom views of the workbooks. So the marketing team is going to get the same set here. And now, since I set that all up in the default project, when I create the new projects by use case, they'll inherit the permissions from the default project so that this permission system will scale with all new projects we create. You can see here that we've got the same setup on these user groups.
Like that avoiding redundancy there.
Yeah, just trying to save time. So this is a workbook that we get asked about all the time. It's got data on our website, traffic statistics, and people ask for us all the time. So I'm going to publish this up to our site so people can start accessing it on their own instead of emailing me for it. So I'm just going to go ahead and share this to online, sign in.
This is where naming that site comes in handy if you're popular and you have multiple access to sites.
So we'll publish that up to the KPIs folder because that's where people are going to be looking for it. It's going to inherit the same permissions as the rest of the project. And we're going to publish up an extract of the data as we do this.
That was quick.
So now here it is on the site. People can use this URL to go to the dashboard. And I think this will help save some of the emails we've been receiving so far. Dustin, what's next? What else do we got to do to remove the bottleneck on ourselves?
All right, yeah, I'm liking that. Great. So that looks pretty great. Content's in one central location, and we know that users are able to get to it securely. But if we stop here, we're still required to manually update our data to keep it fresh. You publish the workbook with an extract, but again, that's like the snapshot. So maybe there's something we can do to handle that case. And despite my best efforts to train management to go to that link, they still keep asking me for those weekly emails. So yeah, I mean, that's fine. Habits are hard to break. So I like where we're headed, but we don't want to have to publish the workbook every single time. We need to keep it fresh. That keeps us as a bottleneck too. So obviously, Tableau has an answer for these issues. Like the slide says, we can automate all these tasks to keep our users informed of when the data changes, and also kind of reduce that burden on us individually, get some of our time back. Okay. So in the past, when we got the new data, we had to refresh that extract in desktop, generate a view. Okay? Then we got to package that workbook, send it to everybody over and over again. If your data updates daily or by the hour, transactional information, that just doesn't scale. So, thankfully we can use the Tableau platform to handle that for us. Tableau will connect automatically to those refreshes. We could set a schedule for it, or we can even do that on demand from within the site. Right? So the other scenario we have is that email issue. I can actually sign myself up to get an email subscription of that view. So once the data is fresh, then I can send another email to myself or even to the rest of the team and get that latest update. So no more of me sending that manually from those package workbooks. The last part that we're going to cover, data-driven alerts. So this is pretty new. Some of you have been around a little while may have heard of this one. This is great. So we can get alerts when the data actually exceeds a specific threshold instead of waiting for that daily or email subscription to come through. As long as I have some continuous measure as an access in my view, I can set it up to send to me immediately. Things like counts of records or running total of sales, things like that. Right? So that's really useful for us to pick up when there's certain trends downward, pick it up early, identify the problem and fix it. That'll also keep management happy. So let's see how we do that with this view. Okay. So obviously this is the most popular view we have, so I'm going to want to make sure that I'm informed and sending that out to our management teams. Okay. So let's go to the data source here. We want to make sure that stays fresh. So I've drilled into the data source from the content menu. I see the basic information about the connection, and I see this link for refresh schedules. So within here, you'll say that the extract refresh button on the top will allow me to create that schedule to update the data in real time. However, depending on how that data is connected to either on-premise or maybe cloud-hosted, if Tableau Online can't connect to my own network directly, I can actually change how it is that the refresh is going to run. Okay, so maybe I have Salesforce data, Tableau Online can connect to that with the embedded credentials of the publisher of that data source. But if it's like a SQL database that's not accessible from the web that online can't connect to it, I can also run it up from a computer on my network using Tableau Bridge. So if you've heard of Bridge, that's something that comes directly with Tableau Desktop. You just run that out of the server menu and start that client on your own local machine. Then that'll automate publishing those extracts up to your site, taking you out of it. Right? So I'm going to choose, I've got my machine that's running within the network on premises so that I can keep this data fresh. Okay. Once I set how it's going to connect, I'll start that refresh, and I can choose the cadence that I want for this. So I think for this point, daily is good enough. I'll do it every business day, and I'll do it, let's say, 4 in the morning to make sure that that update is complete by the time we come in for the day. Great. Okay, so there's our schedule. So let's go back to that workbook. So now that I know that the data is going to be updated, let's actually send subscriptions on this. So from the view itself, we see these menu options here. So the subscribe icon, I can click that and add users such as myself. Or I can even subscribe whole groups. So that's where adding those groups early on really comes into play here, so I don't have to type each person individually. So let's get our management group there. I want to include this view. This is the only one they're really looking at, and again, I'll set my schedule. This time I'll do it daily, let's say 6 o'clock. That should give us enough time for the data to update, but also be ready in their inbox when they show up for work. I can customize the subject, add a little message saying good morning, enjoy, and let's just subscribe. Great. So that created subscriptions for 5 individual users, myself and all of the members in the management group. But as I said, maybe I want to be informed when something happens to this data. This is a count of page views over each day in this time series. So our traffic's pretty steady. But if something critically wrong happens, and we start dropping off that traffic, I'm going to need to know about it so I can reach out to my engineers. So let's select that axis and choose Alert. So here I can set the condition. As I said, I want to know whether those page views drop below a certain threshold. So let's just say 500,000. You can see that reference line actually updates immediately. And it gives me an idea, well, there's a lot of times it falls below 500,000. Those are probably weekends. So maybe I should correct that, be a little more appropriate for that critical level. That looks about right. And I can set the frequency for when it's sending the email as well. I want it as often as possible. Should never drop that low. And in addition to Graham, I'll add myself. So if something happens, there's no surprises for you when I call you at 3 in the morning. Great. So there we have it. We just automated those 3 pressing data automation tasks. This one.
Great. Now we're going to fast forward about 6 months in time in this scenario, and our site has grown a lot in that time. Our analysts have been publishing a lot of their own content, and the management marketing teams are loving being able to access everything on their own through their browsers and these automated updates they're getting. Life has gotten a lot easier for us so far, but even so, things could be better because people have started complaining about a lot of clutter and wondering if there's a way to clean things up. And the marketing team and management team both want to actually start doing their own authoring now, and they don't have the right access to do that yet. So let's reevaluate the permissions system we've set up in our organization strategy so we can allow them to access data themselves, do their own authoring, but in a safe way that keeps our production workbooks still in a clean spot and keep things clean going forward. So first, we're going to review the content in our site, see which stuff people are actually using, and reorganize the content by using nested projects to create a safe place for people to do experimental work, but also keep a good place to keep our production workbooks and clean and without any clutter. Then we're going to evolve the permissions to give some people the ability to do web authoring that didn't have the ability before, and show how you can use published data sources to enable web authoring in the web so that people can create new workbooks from the popular data that we have here. There we go. So here I am in the future version of the site. You can see that a lot more content has been published up here in these last 6 months. I published up the rest of the workbooks that people were asking me about before, and the analyst team created their own workbooks, some of which are fully baked, some of which are still in progress. So first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the admin view to give me an overall sense of which workbooks people are looking at and their popularity to make sure I don't get rid of anything that's truly popular. So this view lets me see how much traffic is going to which workbook and how that's trending over time. So you can see the KPIs project is the most popular one, which makes sense. Everybody needs to look at that. And you can see over time what the view counts have been. So that user engagement one is that web performance workbook, so it looks like that is the most popular one. Looks like some of the ones that the analyst team has created, like website traffic, have actually gotten really popular too. If I go back to the content view, I can also just hover over the workbooks to see how they're trending over time. So I can drill down and see on a workbook by workbook level easily whether they're getting popular and used. I can see here just through the thumbnails that there are a few workbooks that aren't quite fully baked. Like this one, it doesn't look very nice. I don't think this should be in this whole KPIs folder.
Yeah, that might be mine, sorry.
Come on, Dustin, you can't publish stuff like that up here.
All right.
So I'm going to create a new sandbox project where Dustin can put his unfinished work and keep it clean from the rest of the stuff. So sandbox, I'll put this nested project right underneath the KPIs one. And I'm going to set some permissions here so that more people can start authoring stuff in this project. So I'm going to give managers the ability to publish now, which will give them the ability to save new content into this project. They don't actually need a Tableau desktop license to save stuff in here, but they do need the save permission on the project to be able to save stuff in here, which is why they get this project role permission. And then they're going to be able to edit stuff in here and connect to any data sources that I publish to this project. And to do the same thing for the marketing team. I don't know, maybe I should take away Dustin's authoring capabilities on the KPIs one.
Stick with the pros.
I'm also going to let the analysts be a project lead on this so that they have full capabilities to manage everything. Just so that they can keep the sandbox folder clean and they can delete everything that they need to. So then I'm going to go in here and move the unfinished workbooks into the sandbox folder, get this one cleaner. And now this looks a lot better. Next thing I'm going to do is publish up a data source that people have been asking for. So the underlying data source in this web analytics workbook, I want to publish this up to server and share it so that people can start doing their own analysis.
Silence your phones.
Let's make sure I'm in the... So now that this is published here, and assuming I set up an extract refresh schedule so that this is getting updates over time, we can create a workbook right here in the browser. And so new users are going to be able to, these new marketing and management users are going to be able to just do their own analysis directly in the browser and do new authoring. And they can author straight into that sandbox folder. So hopefully now we've delegated away a lot of the work that we needed to do, and our team can keep growing on its own without us being a bottleneck.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think you nailed it. We're automating and delegating just about everything that was in our way before. Right? So let's recap where we started. We had a couple of desktop licenses, lots of users with Tableau Reader. Right? Didn't have a central secure way to share those vizzes. Had a crazy amount of email requests coming in, and of course sending them out by email weren't secure. And overall, just a lot of manual steps, so a little frustrating there. So in under an hour, we created a new site completely from scratch. We added 3 user groups to our site, and then set the roles and permissions to them. We created projects for these groups so they know where to find the content that matters to them and know where to share their in-progress work. We were able to quickly set tasks to keep the data fresh and automatically send me those messages so that I can get that on a schedule every single week instead of having to do it for myself. Those real-time notifications will let us know when something's interesting happening to the data so that I can respond even more quickly. Most importantly, set up a system which empowers the rest of our team to be able to do their own data discovery. So, yeah, I don't know, I think we pretty much kick back and relax now. We don't have anything. Yeah, so I don't know. You guys ready to try this out too? Got a couple resources here. So we've got a link for you to be able to try Server or Online for yourself. Both of the server options, we've got a trial link there for the on-premise as well as the public cloud option. With the public cloud, we even have a link to the AWS Quick Start. So that allows you to go to the marketplace, start provisioning the computing resources as well as have Tableau already set up on it. Right. And we also have the link to that Tableau Online request. That's how I got that email to start this out. We also have a link to the server administrator guide. Specifically, we have this tailored for you as a site administrator if you don't have those back-end resources. This guide here will show you pretty much everything we walked through today. So I know we went a little quickly, we gotta go fast. There's a lot to cover, and you know, if they put us earlier in the week, then maybe you'd be able to break out to some of those other sessions. But not a worries, you got the link right here. So speaking of those other sessions, we also have a list of our customers that are actually using these features in real time. So these are real customers that be able to share to you their stories of driving self-service at scale using the Tableau platform. If you don't get to see them all, because there's only one session left, obviously you should be able to see these once you get back home. We'll send the link to this and all the other content, so you can watch them there and share with your friends. Okay, great.
So now we've got about 15 minutes for question and answering. If you guys have another session you need to go to that's really far away, you feel free to leave now and walk so that you don't have to run. And we're open for questions. So, yeah. Here. I'm going to take the mic down so that we can hear you.
When you set up the alerts, I noticed you still had to plug in by person. But if you wanted to alert the marketing department, the whole department, could you choose the group in the alert?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the alerts are pretty much recent as of our latest version of Tableau. So for both the subscriptions and the alerts, we started with the individual users. We did the group subscriptions first, and we're working on getting the group subscriptions for those data-driven alerts in the coming versions. So, yep, good question though. It'll be even easier going forward.
Dustin, which one?
Sorry? Yeah, right here.
So, was it you first? Okay.
My name is Nisha. I work for Fannie Mae, and we use Tableau Server currently to, move it to production. An issue we've faced in the past is we publish with an extract because of the volume of the data, and we schedule the extract to refresh at a set time. But the data rarely refreshes at a set time because of all the dependencies. And so there's sometimes no data when the extract refreshes, and we get a lot of calls. So is there a way, I guess, to schedule an extract refresh based on a table update?
Based on table
Thank you.
update, schedule that refresh.
So I can answer
yeah.
this question. So right now, the extensibility team is working on ways that you can use the APIs to trigger that extract refresh manually after your data updates. But you'd have to build that integration yourself. In the product right now, currently you'd have to time it out with the schedule. So if your data is updating, the actual underlying data is updating irregularly, I suggest you reach out to the extensibility team members. You get onto the data kiosk, they might be able to help you run through some scenarios and give up some examples of how to do that. Yeah.
So it's kind of curious, a lot of the stuff that we saw today, is this the newest version of Server, and are there a lot of changes that have happened, maybe in the last 2 or 3 versions? Because we're using we have desktop 10.1, tried using 10.3, and I couldn't publish to our server. So is there a lot of stuff that I just saw that isn't available in the version of Server that I'm using?
Yeah, this is all current content. The nested projects in particular, though, we did have that one caveat where that's in beta for 10.5 now. As they announce that, you should be able to request access to that, and you can try that out there. But everything else that we showed you is live and in production today, our latest and greatest.
Yeah, so data-driven alerts came out, I believe, in 10.4.
10.3.
10.3?
I think that was, yeah, 2 quarters in.
And I think that's the only other one that was new. And then, as you saw in Devs on Stage, starting in 10.5, you'll be able to publish to older versions of Server. So that feature might help you out as well.
Yeah, that'll be really key.
Yeah, but we're fixing that for you in the new version. I
Good.
think
One over here. I can repeat you too, so you don't have to run over. There you go.
So another feature that you guys tell me is available or not is when we do extract refreshes, it always has to do a replace on the entire data set. Can we, a lot of our data, only certain data elements update, and we have, of course, we have trigger dates.
Yep.
So how can we get it to do incremental updates versus complete refresh of the data set?
So there is an incremental refresh option, and Hyper is changing the way we do incremental refreshes, but I can't comment yet on exactly what the details of that are going to be, but you can expect with Hyper that there's going to be some more improvements to those. But this is a request we've heard, and we are working on ways to improve that. But there's a 10.3, yeah, I think you just have the incremental refresh that you have now, which I do know doesn't always incrementally update in certain scenarios. I see. Yeah, it can append, but it can't. Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
I think right now that's still TBD. It's still going to come in the future, but we do know that request, and it's being worked on.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. You mentioned keeping your projects kind of clean and whatnot. Is there like a best practice, or do you have an opinion as to how many workbooks should be in there before you maybe start breaking it out into multiple projects?
Yeah, honestly, it's probably your own use case. So, Tableau, obviously, we use a lot of our own products, and so we depend heavily on the Tableau server for that. And yeah, you'll get hundreds of views in there because everyone's so eager to publish. So we obviously were one of our own biggest customers of being able to organize our content a little bit better. I would just say that once you start having to kind of filter on maybe the name of it and trying to navigate quickly, yeah, I think listen to the feedback from your users, and that's where at least these tools will allow that to ease their navigation. So there's the balance between having too many different levels and which one did it go to versus just one-stop shop. So yeah, it might be your own use.
Okay. And then my second question is I'm a little confused on the site role and how that's important, because it looks like you can just change everyone's permissions per project anyway. So what is the site role actually doing?
Yeah, do you want to start or?
Yeah, so site role gives them a base level of permissions, and it also will incorporate, it'll tie into licensing level stuff as well. But for now, you're right, it is a little bit confusing, and I've heard that feedback before. All of the content level permissions you do set on the content itself. So you set that on the projects, and you set that on the workbooks. But that site role gives them a base level. Yeah.
Yeah, I also did show, I know I skipped on accident a little bit, but with the role, it basically says that base interactor, what you can do with the content, and then there's the extra layer of whether they can administer and see the menu bar that I was using at the top, versus no other user actually would see that because that's the admin roles. So that's the other key.
Dustin, you're keeping an eye on time?
Yeah, we're good.
Hi, I'm Kranti. So I have a question around data-driven alerts. So now that we have these nested projects coming up, and once users starts creating their own version of the workbooks in these nested projects, so I'm assume that data-driven alerts are on workbook level, right? So what if there are like 5 versions of the workbook, and how do we communicate between the to the users?
Got it.
So how are you going to deal with that challenge?
Yeah, so the alerts are actually set on the view. So if people do web author and create distinct versions of that view, it won't necessarily inherit that. As a site administrator, you can manage all of the various subscriptions and alerts that do get sent out from views. So if you want to port those over for yourself, or somebody says just make it stop, right? You can go in and make those edits yourself within the site too. So even if somebody set their own version of it. Yep. Back here.
Hi, this is Carol. I hope I can convey my question properly. But we're new, and we do have a server up now. Currently, our plan is to provide corporate data sources that can be used for self-service, and plan on having different projects for specific groups that want to do their own analysis. And currently we have only one site, and I was wondering, what's your recommendation? Do you think that that's the way to go, by having one site, or do you think that we should have a corporate site where everything is secured properly, where roles are set up properly, and then have another site for those specific other groups for self-service?
Great. You want it?
Yeah, I'll take this one. You said you're using Tableau Server as well? Yeah. And what version are you on?
Currently it's 10.2.
Okay. All right, great. Well, so if you're using separate sites, one thing to keep in mind is in a Tableau Server, separate sites do not allow you to share content between them. They're meant to be completely isolated so that you could have a separate line of business running on that other site and don't have any data leakage across them. So that's an important thing to keep in mind if you're using Tableau Server and you're thinking of using several sites. So and for some businesses, that's totally what they need, because they don't want any of their financial data leaking to people in HR, or vice versa. But I don't know if that's the case for yours. And so for most businesses, I think it actually is appropriate to have a site and use projects to organize by. And if you wait for 10.5, nested projects will let you have that additional hierarchy.
I'm actually excited about that.
Yeah, so I might wait till then.
It's in beta right now.
It's in beta right now.
If I download the 10.5 beta, I should be able to test it out.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'd suggest waiting for that, and then you'd be able to do all the hierarchy that you need just in a single site. What was your other question? Is that everything?
Yeah, that was it actually.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Exactly, yeah. So within projects,
Could you repeat that?
so the question was, within projects, can groups see the multiple projects within that project? Yeah, so when you go within a project, you can set permissions on all of those sub-projects. So assuming you were a member of a group that had the proper permissions to see other sub-projects, you would be able to see it. But you could hide certain projects underneath in that hierarchy from certain people. Mm-hmm. The question was, is it visually hidden? Is it visually hidden, or is it there, but when you try to click on it, will it prevent you from accessing it? It'll be visually hidden. Yeah, that way people don't even know that there's uber secret, this is where everybody's salaries information is contained project.
You can explicitly restrict that view. Yeah. That's the project view here.
Is there any difference between online and server related to these questions about setting up? And also I had another question, so.
Okay, so is there any difference between online and server related to these questions around setting up? Well, yes and no. So online is just Tableau Server managed by Tableau. It's running right now. If you go to normal online, it's running on 10.4. There's online beta, which is running 10.5. If you're using online, you get a site and you pay per user. So on-premise server has a different pricing model, and you can set up as many sites as you want. Mm-hmm. In terms of project organization, all these features we showed you today are going to be the same.
Okay.
Either way.
So you were talking about setting access to different pages for internal users.
Yeah.
So we have a situation where we have regional offices, basically, and we want to give them one set of reports that's national and then catered regional reports for each of them. Do I need to set up sites for each of them then?
Depends if you, do you care if you want to share some stuff across all regions and then have some stuff that's region specific, you probably want it in one site so that you can have one project that's for shared stuff and then other projects for the regional specific stuff. Otherwise, you're going to not be able to access the shared stuff if you put it in a separate site.
Okay, and so you can restrict access to the different projects by the different regional people?
Yeah, so you could set up a user group per region,
okay,
for example, and then your US West region doesn't have permissions to view things in the US East region.
And can I call you when you help me set all this up?
Yeah. Hey, thanks.
So what I did is I set up the group structure, as mentioned here, but then within my local workbook, I created, what did I do? I was able to set those level permissions of whether they could see the view or not see the view, and brought those groups into my workbook. So then when they're published, it delegated whether they can open the workbook, but region A could only see region A. Region B could see. So there's a way to do that within the workbook. You manage your groups here, which was great. Mm-hmm. You manage all your people at the top line within the project, but then you can manage the visibility within your workbook.
Yeah, and you're talking about a feature called user level filtering, yes, which will take the Tableau user and then filter out. You can filter what data they're actually able to see in the workbook. So I think we are just about out of time. Thank you all for attending here and for your questions. Please give us some feedback on the session survey, details in the TC17 app, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your time here.
Thank you, everyone.